It was supposed to be a joyous occasion, her stepmother's wedding. But for 7-year-old Lily Foster, it became a nightmare. In front of a lavish ballroom filled with guests, Lily was publicly humiliated, soaked head to toe with ice water, and ridiculed by her new family. The crowd just watched, turning a blind eye to the shivering child, all except one man, a wealthy stranger. William Montgomery suddenly stepped forward, his face like thunder. The words he spoke next stopped the music and left the entire wedding party in stunned, absolute silence. Lily, daughter of the late businessman David Foster, was now just a burden to her stepmother, Isabel Davenport. Everyone believed Isabel was a saint for adopting her late husband's daughter, but behind the scenes, she was cruel. Lily clutched the only thing she had left, a framed photo of her father, as Isabel's aunt sneered, "You don't belong here anymore." When the aunt doused her with water, the room filled with muffled laughter. Lily collapsed, whispering, "Please don't throw me out." But Isabel just smiled coldly and whispered back, "Get out of my sight before you ruin my life." What city are you watching this video from, and what time is it? By the way, if you're enjoying my videos, I'd be so happy if you could subscribe to my channel and like this video. William Montgomery stood in the opulent ballroom, his expensive charcoal gray overcoat now draped over the shivering 7-year-old shoulders of Lily Foster. The contrast between the fine cashmere and her drenched second-hand dress was stark. "Is there something wrong with all of you?" William's voice wasn't loud, but it cut through the murmuring and the soft music like a knife. The room was silent. Guests, moments before laughing and sipping champagne, now stared at their shoes. A man in a crisp blue suit, a business acquaintance of the new groom, finally cleared his throat. "It's a family matter, Montgomery. It's best not to interfere." William ignored him completely. He crouched down to Lily's level. Her small body was shaking, her lips blue. "Do you want to get out of here?" Lily's eyes, wide with terror, darted from this strange man to her stepmother, Isabel, who was watching from the center of the room. After a long, agonizing second, Lily gave a tiny, almost imperceptible nod. That was all William needed. As he stood up, Isabel glided over, her pristine white wedding dress immaculate. Her face was a perfect mask of concerned, gentle motherhood. "Mr. Montgomery, I appreciate your concern," she said, her voice dripping with saccharine sweetness. "But this is a private matter. Lily is my daughter now. She's just overwrought." "A family matter doesn't give you the right to abuse a child in front of 100 people," William stated, his voice flat and cold. The new husband, Roger Davenport, slid up beside Isabel, placing a possessive arm around her waist. He was handsome, smooth, and radiated a salesman's oily charm. "Look, Mr. Montgomery," Roger said with a dismissive chuckle, "today's our wedding. This isn't the time or place for you to play the white knight. We can take perfectly good care of Lily. If you want to be a hero, find another stage." Lily, who had been silent, suddenly lunged forward and grabbed William's hand. Her grip was desperate. "Please," she whispered, her voice cracking. "Please, don't leave me here." That settled it. William's jaw tightened. "We're leaving." He didn't look back. He simply took her small hand, grabbed her battered suitcase with his other, and walked toward the grand exit. The crowd parted for him like water. "You can't just take her," shrieked Isabel's Aunt Diane. "Isabel, do something." But William didn't stop. He pushed open the heavy oak doors, leaving the lavish party, the stunned silence, and the shocked faces behind. William's black Mercedes sedan was parked near the entrance. He gently buckled the shivering child into the back seat. She was silent, her small hand still clutching the wooden picture frame as if it were a life raft. He got in the driver's seat, and the silence in the car was deafening, broken only by the quiet hum of the engine and Lily's chattering teeth. He turned the heat up high. He looked at her in the rearview mirror, pale, shivering, her wet hair plastered to her face. For a split second, it wasn't Lily. It was Sophia, his own daughter 6 years ago, in the moments just before the wreckage, the sirens, and the end of his world. The memory hit him with the force of a physical blow. He gripped the steering wheel, his knuckles turning white. "What am I doing?" he thought, his mind reeling. "Am I saving this child, or am I just trying to save a ghost?" He cleared his throat, pushing the image of Sophia away. "Are you hungry?" Lily flinched at the sound of his voice. "No, sir." she whispered. Just as the words left her mouth, her stomach betrayed her with a loud, embarrassed growl. A deep crimson blush spread across her cheeks, and she sank lower in the seat, as if trying to disappear, hiding her face behind the picture frame. In the back seat, Lily was having her own silent panic. He'll get tired of me. They all do. First they're nice, then they get angry. He seems nice now, but he'll get mad and leave me too. William didn't comment on the noise. He just drove. He pulled off the main highway and into the bright fluorescent lights of a fast food drive-thru. Stay here. I'll be right back, he said gently. He didn't want to drag her inside, soaked and trembling. He returned a few minutes later with a warm paper bag. The rich smell of fries and grilled burgers filled the luxury car, a stark contrast to the leather and polished wood interior. He didn't turn around. He simply placed a small cheeseburger, fries, and a bottle of water on the back seat next to her. It's there if you want it, he said, pulling back onto the road. He drove in silence for several miles. Then, he heard the faint, tentative crinkle of paper. In the mirror, he watched her tiny, trembling hands carefully unwrap the burger. She ate slowly at first, cautiously, as if expecting to be scolded. Then her hunger took over. She ate ravenously, finishing every last bite and every fry. When she was done, she neatly folded the wrapper and placed it back in the bag. The small amount of warmth and food, combined with the day's terror, was too much. She curled up on the leather seat, pulling William's heavy coat over her small body. Within minutes, she was fast asleep, her breathing finally even, her hand still locked around her father's picture. William looked at her in the mirror. She's just like Sophia. The thought was both a comfort and an agony. In the boardroom, he was a shark. He managed billions in assets. He was decisive, ruthless, and always in control. But this small broken child sleeping in his back seat, he was completely, terrifyingly lost. He drove for nearly an hour, leaving the city lights behind, heading toward the wealthy, secluded communities overlooking Puget Sound. An imposing black iron gate slid open silently as he approached. They drove up a long, winding driveway flanked by massive pine trees. The house was not a home. It was a fortress, a stunning, modern, architectural marvel of glass, steel, and dark cedar. It was beautiful, intimidating, and utterly cold. He parked the car and sat for a moment, listening to the engine tick. He turned and gently shook her shoulder. Lily, we're here. She woke with a start, her eyes wide with fear. Where? My home. She stepped out, clutching her bag and her photo, and just stared. The house was enormous, dark and silent. Inside, the foyer was 2 stories high, the floors polished concrete. The sparse, minimalist furniture and expensive abstract art made the space feel more like a museum lobby than a living room. The sound of their footsteps echoed. You can stay here, William said. The words felt awkward in his own house. Lily looked around the vast empty space, then up at him, her eyes brimming with a fear that broke his heart. If I do something bad, will you kick me out? She whispered. The question stopped him cold. It was a punch to the gut. He remembered his own childhood. A strict, unloving father where affection was conditional. He crouched down, forcing himself to meet her gaze. No, Lily, he said, his voice thick. I will never, ever kick you out. She didn't look convinced, but she gave a small nod. Let's get you some real food, he said, trying to sound normal. His kitchen was a state-of-the-art cathedral of stainless steel and marble, and it was clear it was rarely used. He felt clumsy, opening and closing empty cabinets. Finally, he found it, a box of Kraft macaroni and cheese and a pack of hot dogs. It was the only kid food in the house, a relic from a visit that never happened. He felt ridiculous, standing at his $20,000 Viking stove in a bespoke suit, stirring the bright orange powder into a pot of boiling water. They sat at a massive, dark wood dining table that could easily seat 20, just the 2 of them, at opposite ends. Lily ate slowly, politely, her eyes down. William struggled to break the oppressive silence. My daughter, Sophia, he started, his voice cracking on her name. He hadn't said it aloud in years. She loved this stuff. Macaroni and cheese. She would have eaten it for breakfast if we'd let her. Lily looked up from her bowl, her fork frozen in the air. I lost my dad too, she whispered. Their eyes met across the vast expanse of the table. A man who had lost his child, and a child who had lost her father, in that empty, silent mansion. They were the two loneliest people in the world, and for the first time, William felt a flicker of something other than grief. It was resolve. I can't lose her like I lost Sophia. After dinner, he showed her to a guest room. It was pristine, impersonal, and decorated in shades of gray. You can sleep here for tonight. She quietly placed her small, battered suitcase on the floor and set her father's photo on the nightstand. It was the only personal item in the room. Just as he was about to say goodnight, the doorbell rang. It wasn't a chime. It was a loud, demanding buzz that echoed through the house. William tensed. He went downstairs. Through the frosted glass of the front door, he could see the silhouette of a woman, still in a white wedding dress, and a man in a suit. He opened the door. Where is she? Isabel demanded. Her wedding day makeup was slightly smeared, and the sweet, grieving mother act was gone. Her eyes were cold, hard points of venom. The man beside her stepped forward, all business. He thrust a card at William. Franklin Sloan, attorney at law. Mr. Montgomery, you are illegally detaining my client's minor daughter. This is by definition kidnapping. William didn't flinch. He stood in the doorway, a solid, immovable object. She is sleeping. She's been through a traumatic ordeal. If you want to discuss this, you can have your lawyer call my lawyer in the morning. Otherwise, get off my property. Isabel let out a sharp, cold laugh. You think you can win this? You think you're some hero? The court will see exactly what you are. A sad, lonely old man trying to replace his dead daughter. You're pathetic. Good, William said, his voice dangerously quiet. Let's go to court. He closed the door in their faces. Weeks later, the preliminary hearing was a blur. The sterile family courtroom felt suffocating. William sat with Lily on one side, his hand resting protectively on her shoulder. Across the room sat Isabel, now dressed in simple, modest mourning black. Her new husband, Roger, sat beside her, his arm draped protectively around her shoulders. They looked like the perfect, grieving, unified couple. Isabel took the stand, dabbing at her eyes with a tissue. Your Honor, Mr. Montgomery, he preyed on her, on our family's grief. He took her from her home. I just want my daughter back. I'm all she has left. Seeing this performance, Lily couldn't stay quiet. She jumped up from her chair. She's lying. She's lying. She hit me. She locked me in the closet and said she wished I was dead. The courtroom gasped. Isabel broke into theatrical sobs. See what he's done? He's turned her against me. My own little girl. Order, order, the judge commanded. A woman in a no-nonsense gray suit stood up. Your Honor, I am Teresa Aguilar, the court-appointed guardian ad litem. My duty is to represent the child's best interests. She turned her sharp, intelligent eyes on William. Mr. Montgomery, do you have any physical proof of this alleged abuse? William hesitated. I saw bruises on her arms when I took her. I have her testimony, Isabel's lawyer, Sloan, scoffed. Bruises? Your Honor, children play. They fall down. This is a desperate, transparent attempt by a man to, frankly, to fill a void in his own life. The words hit William like a physical blow. He had no legal standing, no proof, just his word against the grieving widow. The judge sighed, looking sadly at Lily. Until a full investigation can be completed, the child must be returned to her legal guardian. Temporary custody is granted to Mrs. Isabel Davenport. No, William shouted, rising from his seat. Lily let out a sound of pure animal terror. No, please no. Don't make me go with her! William, don't let them take me. A bailiff had to gently, but firmly, pry her screaming, crying form from William's side as she clawed at his jacket. I'll get you back, Lily, William yelled, his voice breaking. I promise. I'll get you back. Outside the courthouse, Isabel smiled sweetly for the social worker, stroking Lily's hair. Thank you so much. We'll take such good care of her. The moment the car door closed, the mask vanished. Isabel backhanded Lily across the face, the crack echoing in the small space. You little brat, she hissed, her face inches from Lily's. You will never embarrass me like that again. They didn't go back to the main house. Isabel grabbed Lily by the arm and dragged her up the stairs to a small, dark attic room. It was filled with old boxes and smelled of dust and mold. You'll stay here until you learn to keep your mouth shut, Isabel snarled, and Lily heard the heavy click of the bolt sliding shut on the outside of the door. Lily collapsed, sobbing, in the dark. She clutched her father's picture frame, the only thing she had. Her small fingers ran over the cheap wooden backing. She felt a crack, a loose piece of wood near the bottom. Her heart pounding, her fingers worked at the loose piece. It wasn't just a crack. It was a small, hidden compartment. A small, folded piece of paper slid out. She held it up to the tiny sliver of light coming from under the door. It was her father's handwriting. Messy, rushed. My dearest Lily, if you are reading this, the worst has happened. Do not trust Isabel. She is not who she seems. I have left instructions with my partner, Gabriel Torres. This note is your proof. Whatever you do, Lily, must never be left in her care. He knew, Lily whispered, clutching the note. He knew, back at his empty mansion, William was frantic. He paced the vast, silent living room, his phone to his ear. Voicemail, again. He'd been calling the Davenport house for hours. Isabel wouldn't let him speak to Lily. He hurled his phone across the room, where it shattered against a stone fireplace. No! He swept a priceless vase off a side table, smashing it to the floor. He slumped into a chair, his head in his hands. I failed her. I failed her just like I failed Sophia. Just then, his security system chimed. A car was at the front gate. He ran to the door. Standing on his doorstep, pale and trembling, was Maria, the Fosters' longtime housekeeper, holding a sleeping Lily in her arms. Mr. Montgomery, Maria whispered, tears in her eyes. She locked her in the attic. I had an old key. I couldn't let her. William didn't wait. He gently took Lily from her arms. The child woke, saw him, and burst into tears, clinging to his neck. She hit me. She locked me up. You're safe, William whispered, his voice thick with emotion. You're safe now. But I found this, Lily sobbed, pulling the crumpled note from her pocket. William read it. His grief and despair instantly evaporated, replaced by a cold, sharp rage. The doorbell rang again. William tensed, putting Lily behind him. It was Teresa Aguilar, the guardian ad litem. I know she's here, Mr. Montgomery, Teresa said, stepping inside without an invitation. And I know why. You're not taking her back, William said, his voice a low growl. I'm not here to, Teresa replied. She dropped a thick file on his dining room table. I've been digging ever since that hearing. It felt wrong. This isn't about maternal love, Mr. Montgomery. It's about money. She opened the file. The day after David Foster's funeral, Isabel transferred his entire liquid estate, over $8 million, into an offshore account under her maiden name. She's been liquidating his assets. This is felony fraud. William stared at the bank records. The note from Lily's father proves intent, Teresa said. The bank records prove the crime. We have one shot to expose her. The final hearing is next week. We have to play this perfectly. William looked at Lily, who was clutching his hand, and then at the evidence. We'll fight, he said, and this time we'll win. The final hearing was a media circus. Reporters lined the steps. The courtroom was packed. Isabel and Roger walked in, the picture of worried, righteous parents. William and Lily entered from the other side. Lily was visibly trembling, holding William's hand. Isabel's lawyer, Franklin Sloan, was confident. He called his first witness. Mr. Peterson, you're Mrs. Davenport's next-door neighbor. Yes, sir, the man said. A wonderful neighbor. I'd often see her and little Lily playing in the yard, laughing, such a loving mother. Liar, Lily cried out, tears streaming down her face. He's lying. I was never in the yard. I was in the attic. She told me if I went outside, she'd... Isabel shook her head sadly at the judge. See? The poor girl is so confused. He's poisoned her mind, the room murmured. It wasn't looking good. William leaned into Teresa. They're buying it. We're losing. Wait for it, Teresa whispered. Sloane called his next witnesses, Aunt Diane and Uncle Mark. "The girl is a compulsive liar," Diane said, examining her nails. "Always has been. Desperate for attention." Just as the judge was about to speak, the main courtroom doors swung open. "Your Honor." "I apologize for the interruption." A tall, distinguished man in a perfectly tailored suit strode in. "I am Gabriel Torres, David Foster's longtime business partner and the executor of his actual will." A new wave of murmurs. Isabel's face went white. Gabriel presented a document to the judge. "This is a binding trust agreement, signed by Mr. Foster. It stipulates that in the event of his death, his entire estate was to be placed in a blind trust for his daughter." Isabel was explicitly forbidden from controlling the principal. The room exploded in sound. "And I have this," Teresa Aguilar said, standing and handing her own file to the judge. "Bank records proving Mrs. Davenport illegally transferred millions of dollars out of that estate in direct violation of this trust, starting 24 hours after her husband's death." Isabel snapped. The mask didn't just crack. It shattered. "It's all lies," she shrieked, her voice suddenly rough and ugly. "Stupid interfering fools! That money is mine!" She lunged for the documents on the judge's bench, trying to tear them up. 2 bailiffs grabbed her as she fought and cursed. Her carefully crafted image destroyed in an instant. Across the room, William watched as Roger, her new husband, the man who had stood by her, quietly slipped out of his seat and began walking briskly toward the exit, trying to escape the blast radius. Before we continue, please take a moment to leave a comment about this story and rate it from 1 to 10. How are you feeling? If there's anything you'd like to share, I'm always here to listen. I hope you find a moment of peace and reflection as you follow this healing story and its journey of courage and justice. The courtroom erupted. As Isabel shrieked like a cornered animal, lunging for the evidence, 2 large bailiffs subdued her. The image of the grieving widow evaporated, replaced by a desperate, trapped criminal. Across the room, her new husband. Roger, the man who had stood by her, radiating confidence, didn't move to help. His eyes darted from his struggling wife to the exits. Quietly, he slid out of his seat and began a brisk, determined walk toward the back of the courtroom, trying to melt into the chaos and escape the blast radius of his collapsing world. "Bailiff, stop that man," the judge commanded, pointing a stern finger at Roger. A second bailiff intercepted him just as he reached the doors. The slick, charming facade crumbled instantly, replaced by the pathetic look of a coward caught. The judge hammered his gavel, the sharp crack, crack, crack silencing the stunned onlookers. He stared down at the sobbing, restrained Isabel, his face a mask of judicial fury. After reviewing the financial evidence presented by Ms. Aguilar, he began, his voice booming with authority, "and the binding trust agreement presented by Mr. Torres. This court finds that Isabel Davenport engaged in willful deception, embezzlement, and felony fraud. All claims to the Foster estate are hereby nullified." He shuffled the papers, his gaze softening only when he looked at Lily, who was trembling, her face buried in William's suit jacket. Furthermore, in light of the overwhelming evidence of emotional abuse, neglect, and the defendant's clear, calculated conspiracy to defraud this child of her inheritance, this court grants full and permanent legal custody of Lily Foster to Mr. William Montgomery, effective immediately. For a second, the world went silent. Lily, who had been bracing for another blow, slowly lifted her head. She looked at William, her eyes wide with disbelief. We won?" she whispered. William couldn't speak. He just knelt, pulling her into an embrace so tight it almost hurt. He buried his face in her hair, and for the first time in 6 long, agonizing years, he let himself cry, not tears of grief, but of profound, aching relief. "It's over. Lily," he choked out, his voice thick with emotion. "It's all over. You're safe. You never, ever have to go back." Teresa Aguilar and Gabriel Torres stood beside them, placing comforting hands on William's shoulders. Justice, long delayed, had finally arrived. That afternoon, William's black Mercedes pulled up the long, winding driveway to the cold, imposing glass and steel mansion. But as they got out of the car, the house didn't seem quite so cold. Lily walked into the vast, echoing foyer, no longer a terrified, shivering victim, but as the master of the house. She was quiet, clutching her battered suitcase in one hand and her precious picture frame in the other. She walked into the sterile, minimalist living room, straight to a small, polished side table. On it sat a single, elegant silver frame, holding a picture of a smiling, dark-haired girl, Sophia. Slowly, almost reverently, Lily reached into her bag and pulled out her own worn wooden frame. She paused, then gently placed her father's photo on the table, right next to Sophia's. 2 photographs. 2 lost families, now side by side. William stood in the doorway, his heart aching with a mix of sorrow and a new, unfamiliar warmth. He said nothing, simply watched. Lily turned to him, her eyes serious, lacking the hunted fear they once held. Is this our family now?" "Yes, Lily," William said softly, his throat tight. "It is." She took a small, shaky breath, as if bracing herself for one last leap of faith. "In that case, can I call you Dad?" The question hit William with the force of a tidal wave. He had been Mr. Montgomery for so long, a boss, a client, a name on a building. The word Dad was a ghost, a title he thought he had buried forever, 6 years ago, in a cold cemetery. He couldn't stop the tears that welled in his eyes as he took a step toward her and knelt. "I would be honored," he choked out. She ran to him, her arms wrapping tightly around his neck. He lifted her, holding her as if she were the most precious thing in the world. For the first time in memory, the house didn't feel empty. It felt like a home. The weeks that followed were a blur of new beginnings. The dark, musty attic room at the Davenport house was declared a crime scene, but the guest room in William's mansion was transformed. They painted it bright yellow, and what was once a sterile gray box became a child's room, filled with art supplies, books, and stuffed animals. The silent, state-of-the-art kitchen, once used only for brewing coffee, became a place of chaotic experiments. William, a man who could negotiate billion-dollar mergers, was utterly defeated by pancake batter. His first attempt stuck to the ceiling. Lily's resulting laughter, a sound he'd never heard before, full-bodied and joyous, echoed through the house. It was, he decided, the most beautiful sound in the world. News of the trial had electrified the city. Isabel, Roger, her Aunt Diane, and Uncle Mark were all indicted on multiple charges, including fraud, conspiracy, and perjury. The neighbor, Manuel, faced charges for lying under oath. Their carefully constructed lives, built on a foundation of greed and cruelty, crumbled to dust. Their social circle vanished overnight. Justice, when it finally arrived, was swift and total. But William and Lily paid little attention to the headlines. They were too busy healing. They were busy learning how to be a family. One bright Saturday, William found Lily in the expansive backyard, struggling with a brightly colored dragon kite. "I can't get it to work," she said, her face crumpled in frustration. "Here, let me show you," William said, taking the string. He felt a pang. He hadn't flown a kite since Sophia was small. It's all about the wind. You have to wait for the right gust. You can't force it. Wait for it, now! Together, they ran across the lawn, and the kite caught the breeze. It dipped, then soared, climbing high into the brilliant blue sky, a speck of vibrant color against the sun. Lily's laughter pealed through the garden. William watched her, her face turned up to the sky, her eyes shining with pure, unadulterated joy. He realized his own heart, long since shuttered and locked away, felt light. He wasn't just a millionaire. He wasn't just a grieving father. He was just Dad. This story closes not with the gavel of a verdict, but with the sound of a child's laughter in a garden. Lily, once a symbol of humiliation, found her protector. And William, a man locked in his own grief, found a second chance at life. The message is powerful. Evil may triumph for a season, but justice and simple kindness will always win the day. This story is a mirror, reflecting our own world. It reminds us that even in the darkest, most hopeless moments, a single act of courage, one person refusing to look away, can change a life and a future forever. But I want to know what you think. If you were William, standing in that ballroom, would you have had the courage to step in? In our own lives, do we sometimes look away when we should be stepping forward? Share your thoughts in the comments below. I read every single one. What part of this story truly touched you the most? Was it the moment of humiliation at the wedding, the desperate discovery of the note, or the quiet scene with the 2 photographs? And if you enjoyed this journey, please follow our channel. We have so many more moving, powerful, and heartwarming stories to share, and you won't want to miss what's next. Thank you for being here, and for believing in the power of good.